Let us continue this article here. The flood cause disruption and damage, but they also generate bounty of fish and regenerate the floodplains ecosystem all along the Brahmaputra, including in Kaziranga. The monsoonal environmental and mighty rivers that carry sediments, whether from the still rising Himalaya. Every year, the Brahmaputra and its tributaries, which are at the center of Assam's environment, transport billions of tons of sediments, mainly from the eastern Himalayas, making the landscape volatile. The floods are among the mediators of these interactions. Floods helps release water to surrounding lands and distribute sediments and nutrients across the floodplains and wetlands. Over a million of years, this depositing sediments into the floodplains has produced at least two results: rising the lowland and regularly adjusting the riverbeds. The annual floods are a natural way to enrich the soil, which have a propensity to get depleted. Things began to change rather drastically in 20th century as the human footprint intensified on the floodplains. The landscape was increasingly developed and engineered. Engineered and planned landscape was affected on the floodplain in two ways. It has undermined their ability to store and absorb the water and reduced their capacity to transport the sediments. From an estimated 11,000 people in 1901, the city now is home to close to 1.1 million people. Apart from the embankment failures, number of unofficial media reports suggest that devastation in the floodplain is also a consequence of the consequence of the way the dams and reservoirs are operated. Such human intervention to tame the rivers and stabilize a hydrologically dynamic landscape and riverscape should be based on the guidelines that accounts for the environmental conditions in the northeast India, especially in the region's fragile geology, changing rainfall pattern, high seismicity and risk of landslide. Rapid transformation in the rainfall characteristic and flooding pattern demand building people's resilience. A business as usual vision of infrastructure development will not help achieve this. The construction projects that impede the movement of water and sediments across the floodplain must be reconsidered. The region's historical experience offers several valuable lessons in adaptation to flood. At the same time, climate imposed exigencies demand a new paradigm of early warming and a response system and securing livelihood and economies. Next article that we are moving in, obsessing about diversity. This article is related to GS2 polity and governance. What you have to know about is the various forms of diversity in India, factors leading to diversity amidst diversity in India, threatening factors for India's unity, key analysis and way ahead. Let us see this article deep into. Diversity or its absence is never a problem. The absence of national will is as is the belief that some peoples within the nation do not belong. The modern state system has emerged based on impersonal rules that are neutral to such identities. In France, Napoleon forced unity even though, as recently as 1999, an official report from France identified the continued existence of some 75 distinct languages. Comes to think of it, China is even more culturally, linguistically, religiously diverse than India. Han, the term used to denote the people who are supposed majority in China, was before 20th century merely used to denote the civilized person as opposed to barbarians, much like the word Arya is said to have used in India before unthinking Indians are seduced by the idea that it stands for the race. Han did not refer to ethnic group. According to the Confucianism, the distinction between How and civilized Han and A that is minority barbarian was a cultural boundary. Instead, it was a distinction involving differentiated levels of cultural achievement. Chinese, unbeknown to Indians, profess 5 major and over 20 minor religions, speak in over 13 mutually unintelligible languages. On gaining independence in 1948, China worked to strengthen the nations over the divisive extra-national identities. India went the other way, highlighting the divisions rather than what helped people together. That is a problematic way of ordering things. It is marvelous piece of social engineering that human beings evolved in the past 2 centuries. The institutions of law left to themselves, without the support of institutions, human beings, like most of the animals, have little capacity to synergize on a large scale. British Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, based on a study of primates, has suggested that human beings can maintain a stable social relationship at best with 150 other individuals. It is institutions of nation states that enable the people to reach beyond such natural limitations. It allows people to synchronize their synergies and operate beyond the small face-to-face grouping like the family, tribe, or town. It frees the individual from primordial bond and enables much larger synergies to be developed and than had ever possible till now. India has thrived so far despite the numerous predictions because over a million people value the benefits that flow from being part of the larger collectively much more than their membership of any narrow groupings based on the caste, religion, language, or region. Next article that we are moving into is related to nutrition do's. This article is related to governance GS2. You have to know about the recommendations of interministerial panel, insignificant changes to National Food Security Act NFSA, and why are they needed. You have to know that. Let us see the article in detail. Interministerial panel has recommended the significant changes to the National Food Security Act. Know about the interministerial panel, significant changes in the National Food Security Act. You have to know about that. Interministerial panel has recommended significant changes to National Food Security Act which the government would do well to implement, pointing out the COVID-19 pandemic is likely to have aggravated the silent crisis of malnutrition. The committee has made a strong case for giving more teeth to the act. It's out a legal mandate for the inclusion of protein-rich foods such as egg, nut, pulses in the nutritional schemes at the schools and Anganwadi levels. Guideline of programs such as integrated child development, midday meal have a protein-related norms, but all accounts most state governments have failed to do adequate justice to them. Eggs, for instance, are served in the midday meal in only 13 states in 3 union territories. The panel takes such a reservation on board by proposing that those who do not consume eggs may be provide double the proposed quantity of nuts and seeds. The committee report acquires urgency in the view of the concerns documented by the National Family Health Survey 5. The percentage of anemic children up to the age of 5, for instance, has gone up to 59% in the last survey to 65%. This clearly suggests unhealthy eating habits and absence of micronutrients in diet. Interministerial committee has suggested a corrective. As a corrective. Instead of the purely calorie-centric approach of NFSA, it recommends the incorporation of micronutrients, that is iron, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin B12, folic acid, vitamin A, and B2 in diets. Despite being in place for more than 9 years, NFSA has at best lead to marginal improvement in the nutritional status of the people in the large part of the country. The tweaks proposed by interministerial panel would be just what doctors ordered. Next article talks about putting place to test. This article is related to GS2 governance. You have to know about the key provisions of national education policy. Its objectives is that addressing all the issues related to Indian education system and what further need to be done to strengthen the education system of India. You have to read and know that. Okay. Let us see the article in detail. National education policy. A core objective for higher education is to make it holistic and multidisciplinary. National education policy ties the goal of HME to 3 specific reforms: 4-year undergraduate program, a multiple exit entry system, and a nationwide academic bank of credit system for storing and transferring credits. National education policy notes that undergraduate degree will be of either 3 or 4-year duration. Philosophy, political economics 3-year BA at Oxford University is a well-known example. Given that 3-year format is used in reputed institutions abroad as already established in India, the change to the 4-year undergraduate as the universal norm for degrees in the general education requires justification. The multiple exit entry system has no necessary relationship with the 4-year undergraduate program that has nevertheless been integrated into. Delhi University is inaugurating an 4-year undergraduate program with 4 exit points, 1 in each year, and its own credential certificate is awarded after 1 year, a diploma after 2, and the bachelor degree after 3rd and 4th years, reducing the dropout and providing flexibility and a wider choice of subjects to the students, enabling the credit transfers for lateral movement or re-entry. According to latest survey on educational NSSO report, two-thirds of those who in the age of 18 to 24 had enrolled in the higher education institutions was currently not attending them. So it would be wonderful if the MEs, that is multiple exit entry system, would help this reduce this number. Multiple exit point will certainly help in renaming the dropouts as certificate and diploma holders, but they cannot ensure that these credential will bring significant benefits for holders. Earlier, the indivisibility of the degree provided to an incentive for the students and family try hard to complete their degrees. Meaningless short-term credential will encourage the families to withdraw their awards from education, especially women. In Indian condition, a return to education for dropping out is extremely difficult for those without economic and social resources. National education policy seems to have fallen prey to the dominant global trends in the higher education governance. Modalities such as credit transfer originated in Europe and OECD and are promoted by multilateral agreements like Bologna process and Lisbon. They are designed to solve the European problems of excess capacity in higher education and to expand the catchment area for institutions to ensure their visibility. Higher education today is facing severe challenges across the globe. The instrument justification for higher education, the broken link between the higher education and the employment, if it has ever existed, today's financialized economy creates wealth for the few, creating without creating decent work for many. Along with the rest of the world, India has seen a massification of higher education over the past 2 decades. But the unprecedented widening of access has failed to reduce the inequalities or promote the mobility. This is what the article talks about. Next article is restoring bunny grassland. This article talks about keynote speech at International High-Level Dialogue on Desertification, Land Degradation, Drought last year as a part of India's endeavour to reach the target of restoring 26 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. Forest Department officials have said over the years the landscape of Bunny has shown a drastic change in the deterioration of the grassland taking place due to the heavy uncontrolled grazing, widespread of ingress of Prosopis julifera, dams, exotic trees, harmful exotic tree species is Prosopis julifera, dams constructed on river flowing towards Bunny, periodic occurrence of drought and continuous increase in soil salinity. It was found that in the year 1989 the area was dominated with grassland. The Prosopis julifera, an alien invasive covering only 15.72% of the area, and the land use coverage assessment of the grassland over the 10 years interval revealed the grassland areas as gradually reduced, while same period Prosopis julifera dominant area encroached to more than 30%. Next article that we are moving into is all about Karakal Pakistan in Uzbekistan, the region status crackdown. This article is related to GS1 geography. What to know who are Karakal Parks and what is the region's history. You have to know that. Let us see in the article. At least 18 people are killed and 243 wounded during the last week's government crackdown on protest in Uzbekistan's Karakal Pakistan province. The protest had broken out in response to a plan to restrict the region's long-held autonomy. And the name Karakal Pakistan is derived from the Karakal Paks people, an ethnic majority of 2 million. Karakal Paks consider themselves a distinct cultural group. Their Turkic language, Karakal Pak, is closely related to Kazakh and is one of the 7 language of instructions in Uzbekistan public school. Karakal Pak claim to share a common point of origin with the Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Turkmen, and then they diverged over time. They settled around the river Amu Darya by RLC in the 18th century. Karakal Pakistan was an autonomous area in the Russia-Soviet Federal Socialistic Republic before it became part of the Uzbekistan and as a Karakal Pak Autonomous Socialist Republic in 1936. After Uzbekistan declared its independence from Soviet Union in 1991, Karakal Pak ASSR was re-established as the Republic of Karakal Pakistan. The recognized autonomous republic in Uzbekistan constitution of 1992 and was the right to secede on the basis of referendum. This was the right that proposed amendment had sought to do with it, leading to the protest. Feeling of neglect at one point, Karakal Pakistan was one of the most fertile province in Uzbekistan due to its location next to RLC. However, what was once the world's 4th largest saline lake has been shrinking. So has the arable land. Salt and mineral content in RLC began to rise, killing of fishes. Additionally, desertification of the region turned the Karakalpak into Uzbekistan's most impoverished region. Karakalpaks living south of RLC. Next article that we are moving into is related to Nairobi flies. This is relevant to GS1 paper species in news. What are Nairobi flies? You have to know. How are humans affected by them? You have to know. Let us see in this article. Institute of Technology, Manipal Institute of Technology have reported a skin infection after coming in contact with Nairobi flies. The population of Nairobi flies species is native to East Africa. Nairobi flies, also called Kenyan flies or dragon bugs, are beetle-like insects that belonging to two species. Pederus eximus, Pederus sebaceous. They are orange-black in color, thrive in areas in high rainfall as witnessed in Sikkim in the past few weeks. Usually the insects attacks the pest that consumes the crops and are beneficial for humans, but at the times they come in contact with the human directly cause harmful. The health official says the flies do not bite, but if they disturbed while sitting on anyone's skin, they release a potent acidic substance that can cause burns. Prevention, mosquito nets can help. If a fly lands on a person, it should be gently brushed and not be disturbed or touched. Next article is Bhagyalakshmi temple in Hyderabad. You have to know about that. Next last one is funding winter sets in. Startup staff out in the cold. Over 2K laid off. This article is all about. Investors were cutting big checks to Indian startups with deals is sometimes happening over WhatsApp messages, thereby propelling 40 startups to become unicorn firm valued over $1 billion. However, Russian invasion of Ukraine earlier this year, the US Federal Reserve hiking interest rates, rising inflation has meant that capital has become hard to come by. As funding winter sets on India's startup ecosystem, its biggest chilling effect has been on their employees across sector. So far in 2022, more than 12,000 people, including employees, contractual workers, have been laid out by startups as they look conserve cash and cut runaway cost. The 2022 Lay's story has been primarily led by edtech startup, which reaped the benefits of COVID-19 induced lockdown. This is what all about. Thank you. Have a nice day.